I wish I could tell you there was some kind of epic moment where I found out my wife was cheating, but truth is, it was straight out of a bad soap opera. My name's Nate, and I work at a brake parts factory, nothing fancy, just enough to keep the roof over our heads and food on the table. I've got a good home, a decent job, a wife named Lydia, and 2 boys in elementary school. We've been married 12 years. I thought we were solid. I really did. I run one of 5 machines that builds brake shoes, old pneumatic things that run off compressed air. Been doing it 8 years and never once had trouble. But today? Today, the whole system shut down because the air dehydrator quit. Water in the lines froze everything up, so they sent us home. No work. No pay. Just bad luck. When I got home early and walked into our bedroom, I caught a view I'll never forget. There was Lydia, in bed with some guy. Big guy. Hairy back. She didn't even look guilty, just annoyed. "What are you doing home?" she snapped, like I was the one in the wrong. No apology. No shame. Just blame. Said if I hadn't shown up early, I wouldn't have caught them. Real classy. The guy, turns out his name's Dominic, stood up, twice my size, and smirked. I made the mistake of grabbing him. 2 punches later, I was on the ground, ribs cracked, head ringing. Last thing I remember before everything went black was Lydia pulling the blanket over herself like I was the one intruding. I woke up in the hospital, ribs wrapped, head pounding. Lydia was sitting there looking like she smelled something foul. Soon as the tech left, I asked her straight, "Who was that? And why was he in our bed?" "That's Dominic," she said, cool as ice. "He's a friend. I invited him over." "In our house? While the kids are sleeping down the hall?" "Yeah, and if you hadn't caused a scene, they wouldn't have woken up." She admitted they'd been together for 6 months. Said they usually went elsewhere but couldn't find a sitter. She didn't even deny it. "You're a good dad, Nate. A good husband, even. But Dominic. Dominic's amazing in bed. I'm not giving him up just because you caught us." She promised not to bring him around the house again. Like that made it okay. I told her it had to stop. She just laughed. "If you try to mess this up," she warned, "you'll regret it. Dominic can knock you out again. No problem. Everyone, your family, your coworkers, they'll know what a loser you are." Then she hit me with the kicker. "I'm moving your stuff to the guest room. No need to share a bed anymore." She was right. When I got home the next day, all my stuff was in the guest bedroom. I didn't even argue. I just accepted it and got to work thinking. My boys would ask questions eventually, but I figured Lydia could answer them. I had bigger problems. I went down to the basement and dug out my old call recorder. It only works with landlines, but that would do for now. Lydia mostly uses her cell phone, but it was worth a shot. I hid it behind some paint cans and waited. At work that night, I told the guys everything. My ribs still ached, but the support from my crew made it bearable. Everyone had an idea, some good, some insane. Grant said his cousin worked for Dominic's luxury car dealership, Continental Classics. The guy hated Dominic and could feed us info. Jared offered me a couple of unregistered pistols, which I politely declined. Leo, always the joker, suggested tying Dominic to a tree and building a bonfire between his legs. Everyone laughed, but I wasn't in the mood. Then Ethan, usually quiet, chimed in. "What if we humiliate him?" he said. "Like in that prison in Arizona, dress him in pink." "Pink?" "Yeah," Ethan said. "We tie him up, spray paint him head to toe, and leave him somewhere public." "Sounds risky," someone said. "You'd have to knock him out first." "I got a taser," Adrian added proudly. "It's in my car." I said I'd think about it, but honestly, I didn't want to end up in jail. I wanted real revenge. Smart revenge. Back home, nothing changed. Lydia avoided me unless she needed something. Then she hit me with more great news. She was going on a cruise to Cancun with Dominic and his buddy Wally. "You want me to take vacation days so you can go on a romantic cruise?" I asked. "It's not like that," she said. "Wally's with Rachel. You remember Rachel, she introduced me to Dominic." "Yeah, I'll be sure to thank her." I needed a break. Took the boys to Chuck E. Cheese and let them blow off steam. Before that, we hit Hobby Lobby for some model kits. While they played, I wandered the aisles and stumbled on rows of spray paint. And there they were, 6 cans of bright, beautiful pink. It wasn't much, but it gave me an idea. I had never seen that shade of pink in a spray can before, not at Lowe's, not at Home Depot, nowhere. But there it was at Hobby Lobby, staring me in the face like fate had decided to give me a nudge. I bought every last can, 6 of them, and tossed in a pack of heavy-duty zip ties while I was at it. Just in case. Logan picked out a monster truck model. Mason went with a tugboat. We grabbed some pizza and burned 4 hours at Chuck E. Cheese, then swung by the park to feed ducks with cheap sandwich bread. After that, we ended up at my parents' place for dinner. Logan and Mason stayed glued to the TV while I pulled Dad aside and laid everything out about Lydia and Dominic. Felt like a relief to get ahead of the gossip for once. If Lydia wanted to ruin my reputation, I'd already beat her to it. Dad offered to take care of the boys for a while, which helped take some weight off. Around 9 p.m., I called Lydia to say we were staying at my parents'. She didn't answer, just let it go to voicemail. Next morning, after loading up on pancakes at IHOP, we came home and found Lydia still in bed. The boys wanted to work on their models, so I let them while I got to work on the yard. I turned it into an all-day project, mowing, edging, trimming. Not because it needed it, but because I needed to keep my hands busy. Samuel, the neighbor across the street, lent me his clippers. His wife, Evelyn, was the neighborhood's information hub, so I made sure to tell Samuel to keep an eye out for strange cars if Lydia had company over while I was at work. Told him not to hesitate to call the cops if things got loud. A few houses down, Victor Morgan from the church board handed me a spark plug wrench. I apologized for Lydia's behavior. Victor, being even nosier than Evelyn, soaked it all in. 10 minutes with that guy and the whole church would be whispering about my wife. Skipped lunch, finished around 4, then hit the shower. I felt grimy from the yard work, but better. Treated myself to dinner at Rosie's Cantina, picked the most expensive thing on the menu. Don't remember what it was, but it hit the spot. Spent the night on my brother Dave's couch. Dad had already filled him in, so there was no need for small talk. Lydia thought she could corner me. Thought if I didn't go along with her mess, she'd humiliate me. But she underestimated me. Within a week, I told nearly everyone myself, making her threat worthless. If anything, I painted her as the homewrecker. She didn't see that coming. Next day, I swung by the house to grab a change of clothes before work. Lydia was fuming. Apparently, Rachel told her there were rumors going around the neighborhood, stuff about her turning our house into a brothel. I told her I never said that. All I did was warn the neighbors she might have male visitors while I was at work. Said if they heard anything sketchy, to call the cops. Lydia lost it. Accused me of ruining her image. I reminded her that she did that herself. She stormed off to work, mumbling that she spent time with the boys, though not how she wanted. Yeah, well, welcome to consequence. That night at work, Grant came through big. Said Continental Classics closed early on Thursdays so Dominic could do payroll in peace. No employees, not even the janitor. Perfect timing. Ethan walked me through how to use the taser. Nobody volunteered to test it, but I was ready. Didn't care if I got arrested. Dominic needed to be knocked down a few notches. And if I went down for it, so be it. I'd make sure every news outlet knew exactly why. That kind of attention would wreck him. All week, I barely stopped home. Just enough to sleep and change clothes. Thursday came fast. I drained my truck battery on purpose so Ethan would have to drive me. Our supervisor didn't pay much attention as long as we hit our numbers. Disappearing for half an hour wouldn't raise suspicion. At 8:30 p.m., I slipped out the back door. One of the guys took my spot at the station to keep up appearances. Bathroom breaks were common. No one would notice. Ethan dropped me off behind Continental Classics. I slipped in through the staff door and camped out in a bathroom stall. At 9 o'clock, someone checked the showroom and shut the lights off. That was my cue. I pulled on latex gloves, walked out into the dark office, and found Dominic alone at his desk, his back to me, punching numbers into an old adding machine. I crept up behind him and zapped him with the taser, right at the base of his neck. He jerked hard, almost stood up, so I hit him again. This time, he slumped forward. I moved fast, used zip ties to strap him to the chair, blindfolded him with an old necktie. Then I rolled him out to the showroom window where he'd be front and center when his staff walked in the next morning. I sprayed him head to toe in pink. Had to layer it on thick. It soaked into his clothes faster than I expected, but I used all 6 cans. He looked like a neon flamingo in a business chair. Problem was, he wasn't waking up. I checked his pulse. Nothing. Took off a glove. Tried again, still nothing. Tried his neck. Nothing. Touched his eye with a pencil like they do on those crime shows. No blink. No movement. Panic set in, but I kept my head. I wiped down everything I'd touched. Snipped off the zip ties and took the necktie with me. Where the tie had been, his face was still white against the pink. He looked like a raccoon clown. I ditched all the evidence, including the taser, in a storm drain on my way back to the factory. Got back just before the shift ended. Nobody noticed a thing. Afterward, I told the crew what happened. They were all in on it, and none of them seemed worried. Ethan dropped me off and made sure to remember the time. But I couldn't sleep long. Around 10 a.m., Lydia barged into my room screaming, "What the hell did you do, Nate? Dominic's dead." Rachel called and said they found him in his office this morning. "I know it was you, and I swear I'll make you pay." Third time she called me an idiot that week. I must have been doing something right. I took a long shower, shaved, and walked into the kitchen like I owned the place. That's when I saw a tall man in a suit talking to Lydia, tight haircut, serious face. Cop, no doubt. I grabbed a coffee and sat in my recliner. The man followed me. "Mr. Collins, I'm Detective Marcus Hale. I'd like to ask you a few questions about Anthony Santoro's death." "Not here," I told him, setting down my coffee. "Let's go to your office." "Yours or mine?" "Yours. I'll meet you there after I run a few errands." He gave me an address and room number. Lydia looked like she was about to explode. 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from the detective. He questioned me for an hour. I admitted I had motive but no opportunity. Told the truth, well, most of it. Turns out Dominic had a pacemaker. The taser messed it up. They found marks on his neck and guessed what happened. Detective Hale didn't push too hard. Gave me the "don't leave town" speech and said he'd verify my alibi. We parted on decent terms. I think he knew I had it in me, but couldn't prove it. I grabbed breakfast, pulled some cash from our bank account, and went home. Lydia was gone, so I moved all her stuff to the guest room and claimed the master. Took her car, sold it to a buddy at a car lot, and made sure it'd be sold out of town. I even made a few grand after paying off the loan. She called the house phone, shrieking, "You bastard. Where's my car? Where's my phone?" "Sorry, honey," I said. "I had to hire a lawyer for the homicide charges. I'll get you another car once I'm out of jail." Then I turned my phone off. I was done being the fool. Buying a fancy dinner might sound like a small win, but that night I decided I deserved something better than frozen pizza. Red Lobster was my treat. I still had plenty of cash left after putting down a retainer for a lawyer. Shrimp and lobster were great, but those cheddar biscuits? Man, I could have eaten a dozen of them. After I finished eating, I turned my cell phone back on. I half hoped work might call, or maybe Detective Hale. Instead, the first call was from Lydia. She asked how she was supposed to get groceries without her car or license. I told her I'd take her shopping over the weekend, trying to keep the tone light. Said maybe we could use the time to plan a little trip, just the two of us. That seemed to calm her down a bit. I ended the call saying I had another one coming in. Next call was from Ethan. He told me Detective Hale had already come by the plant and interviewed the whole crew, one by one. He said everyone's stories matched up just fine. Apparently, our floor manager Jack even vouched for Ethan's attendance, saying there was no way he left his station. That was good to hear. Later that night, after the boys went to bed, I found Lydia lounging on the couch with a glass of wine in hand. I grabbed a cold beer and sat in my recliner. I figured maybe we could talk like grown-ups. I brought up how she tried to twist this whole situation to make me out as the bad guy, but that shut the conversation down real quick. She finished her wine and disappeared into the bedroom. I stayed up, listening to the landline recorder. Her first call was to her sister, Diana. No surprise there. Diana knew everything and supported Lydia completely. But the second call was more interesting. It was to her mom, who didn't know a thing. Lydia told her some story about Dominic being Rachel's friend, and that I'd been jealous because I'd supposedly been pining after Rachel for years. She stopped short of saying I killed Dominic, but she made it sound like I was losing it. She'd also called the phone company about getting a new phone. No luck. The DMV told her to file a police report for the license, and the bank said the account was closed. At least she was persistent, I'll give her that. The last call was to Rachel. They talked like a couple of giddy teenagers. Rachel mentioned Dominic's buddy while he was coming into town, and they'd lay low until he got there. That part stuck with me. Next morning, I got the boys up early and left the house before Lydia could so much as open her eyes. We came back after lunch, and sure enough, she was waiting by the door, insisting I take her to the grocery store. No license, no ride. Guess she figured I was her chauffeur now. That night, while she was making dinner, I checked the recorder again. Sure enough, Wally had made it to town. He called Lydia as soon as he arrived, said he believed every word of her story, and was ready to make things right for Dominic. He gave her his number and told her to call him in the morning. As soon as she hung up, she rang Rachel, practically bouncing off the walls. You'd think she just landed a new job or won a raffle, not plotted revenge. It was like I didn't even recognize the woman I married. And to think, all I did was defend my home from a homewrecker and tell the truth. Before bed, I told her I'd be mowing the lawn the next day, even though I wasn't. I just needed a reason to be out of the house. Saturday rolled around and Lydia's parents showed up out of nowhere to take the boys for an overnight stay. I didn't ask questions. When her mom said they'd be back before school Monday, I just nodded. After they left, I checked the recorder again. What I heard made my stomach turn. Lydia and Wally were planning to make it look like a home invasion gone wrong. Wally would sneak in through the back deck door, unlocked, of course, and then shoot me. She and Rachel would call 911 after hearing the gunshot. That's when it hit me. I hadn't changed the beneficiaries on my life insurance. She was going to have me killed and cash the check. All I could do was shake my head. Before leaving for the evening, I made a show of blowing her a kiss. She flipped me off. Classy. I had dinner with my folks again, stayed the night. Before I left, I asked Dad if I could borrow his snake charmer, a little short-barreled shotgun. He didn't ask questions. When I got home, Lydia was already in bed. I listened to the answering machine, just one message. Rachel bragging about her little get-together with Wally that afternoon. They were ready, she said. Perfect. Later that night, I sat on the couch in my boxers, ruffled the bed so it looked slept in, and swapped the buckshot out of the shotgun shells for rock salt. Didn't want to kill the guy, just leave a mark. That rock salt stings like hell, and I figured it'd buy me time. I didn't dare check if the door was unlocked. I had to trust she followed through. Around midnight, I spotted him creeping on the deck. I picked up the phone, called 911, told them there was an armed intruder in my home, and that I feared for my life. Left the line open. He slid the patio door open and crept in. As soon as he stepped fully inside, I let him have it aimed low. First shot knocked him back into the deck railing. Second one sent him toppling over it. He let out a howl like a wounded coyote. I knew he was still alive. Lydia came running, screaming her head off. I noticed a Ruger .22 with a silencer lying by the window. I aimed the shotgun her way and told her to shut it. She backed off real fast. Wally was still moaning outside. Looked like he busted his ankle on the way down. Lucky him. 10 minutes later, the cops arrived. I laid the gun on the floor, hands visible, pointed to the open line on the phone, and told them everything was under control. They found Lydia in the bedroom, still losing it. One of the officers escorted her outside. Rachel was out there too, talking to the neighbors. I gave her a nice little throat-cutting gesture with my finger. She left the scene quick. Paramedics showed up, patched up Wally, and just like that, Detective Hale arrived. He looked at me and smiled. I couldn't help but grin back. They let me ride downtown with Hale. I asked for a separate car from Lydia, and he made it happen. He didn't say much on the way, just glanced over with that same smirk like he was trying not to laugh. We got to the station, and they kept me overnight. They fed me coffee and ran me through the usual questions. I told them the truth again, left nothing out. Turns out, Wally brought a gun with a silencer. That would have been enough to fry me if I hadn't made the call when I did. They let me go after sunrise. A patrol car gave me a lift home. No police tape, no mess. The deck railing was busted, but the glass door survived. Small wins. I passed out until noon. When I woke up and wandered into the kitchen, there was Detective Hale, sipping coffee like he lived there. "You're a cool customer, Mr. Collins," he said, eyes on the paper. I sat across from him with some orange juice. I didn't even ask how he got in. I just said, "You hungry?" "Sure," he said. "I've got all day." I made us pulled pork sandwiches, and we washed them down with a beer. He finally broke the silence. "You probably have questions." "Thought you might, too," I said. He flagged the waitress for another round. "You got any tapes of your wife and Mr. Williams talking?" I raised an eyebrow. What if I did? If they lawyer up hard, that kind of evidence could save me a lot of trouble. I gave a slow nod. "I'll think about it." He smiled. "I like you, Nate. You did what you had to do." As he drove me back home, we pulled up just in time to see Logan and Mason hopping off the school bus. I introduced them to Hale. They got excited, asked to see his badge. Then he asked them, "So who built the tugboat, and who made the monster truck?" "I built the truck," Logan said proudly. "I made the tugboat," Mason chimed in. Hale just laughed. He knew about everything. After dinner, we ordered pizza. The boys never asked where their mom was. Later, Lydia's dad called. Said she needed help with bail. I politely declined. When I asked where she was staying, he paused before saying she'd be with them. I packed up her things and dropped them off at their place. No drama. And just like that, the house was mine again. A couple days after I dropped off Lydia's stuff, I noticed a U-Haul in Rachel's driveway. By the next morning, it was gone, just like her. Lydia never reached out, not even a text. All my updates came from the local paper. Turns out, there was no big trial. Lydia threw Wally under the bus, claimed the whole thing was his idea. Wally, not being the brightest bulb, pointed the finger right back at her. They both took plea deals. Lydia got 3 to 5 years for conspiracy. Wally ended up with 5 to 10 for attempted homicide. Because of the silencer, the feds got involved too, but they held off until after he served state time. Detective Hale never needed the tape, and after a while, he stopped asking about it. Rachel? She completely disappeared. Vanished. Not a word. My dad came by to pick up his little shotgun. He joked, might need it again someday. We laughed, even though there was still a weird energy around the whole mess. He also let me know Lydia had served me with divorce papers shortly after getting to prison. No fight, no argument. She wanted out, and honestly, so did I. I hadn't seen her or spoken to her since the night Wally broke in. I sold the house, moved back in with my folks. Juggling full-time work and raising the boys by myself just wasn't in the cards. My coworkers welcomed me back with open arms. They even offered to move me to day shift, but I declined. Night shift gave me time to think. I started taking the boys to visit Lydia every couple weeks. I never went in. Just waited in the car, sometimes watching through the chain-link fence if the weather was decent. I never asked the boys about it, and they never told. It worked for us. Then one day the phone rang. Hello, is this Nathaniel Collins? Speaking. This is Isabella Rivera. Detective Marcus Hale gave me your number. He thought it would be good if we talked. About what? Dominic Santoro was my brother. Just when I thought this mess was behind me, it came crawling back. I'm sorry for your loss, I said, but I don't think I can help you. And with that, I hung up. 2 days later, she called again. This time she asked to meet. Saturday at 10 a.m., at the showroom. I replied, I'll bring my boys. They like looking at old cars. I was not trying to use my kids as a shield, but I figured she'd be less inclined to start drama in front of them. Honestly, I was probably overthinking it, but I still cracked open a beer after hanging up. I called Hale. He laughed and told me to stop being dramatic and just go meet her. Continental Classics had changed a lot. The grand opening was in full swing when we arrived, popcorn machines, soda stands, clowns, giveaways. Mason and Logan were torn between checking out hot rods and collecting every freebie they could find. Then I saw her. Isabella Rivera. She walked toward me with this cool, confident stride. Compact and strong-looking, maybe 5 feet tall. Dark hair, dark eyes, olive skin. She was all business. Next to her was a young girl, probably 10 years old. Same eyes, same face, but with a softer expression. Her daughter, no doubt. Isabella reached out her hand. Nathaniel Collins, I presume. I shook it, surprised at how familiar it felt. Her smile was polite but cautious. There was something about her that put me at ease. Thanks for meeting me, she said. I want to understand the business inside and out before I really take the reins. In the meantime, I think it's important you stand firm. She talked about Dominic and his wife, how they tried to take advantage of her, but she wasn't as soft as she looked. As she opened up, her seriousness melted into something warmer. I found myself laughing more than I expected. We ended up talking for half an hour. She offered me a position at the company, better pay, benefits, the works. Said if it didn't work out, I could always go back to the factory. I figured, why not? On the way home, Logan got queasy from all the soda and hot dogs. Mason, meanwhile, spent most of the time chatting with Isabella's daughter, Arya. Seemed like a good sign. I started working at Continental Classics that Monday. Isabella was right. I picked it up quickly, and the crew accepted me fast. Especially Grant's cousin. That guy became my right-hand man. Most of the employees wanted to see the place thrive, and they let me know whenever something wasn't right. Eventually, Isabella put me in charge of letting people go. Never thought I'd enjoy firing slackers, but it felt good weeding out the dead weight. Over time, I earned a bit of a reputation straight shooter, no nonsense. Detective Hale stopped by a lot. Always for coffee. Sometimes he shared pieces of his past. 3 years ago, I was a cop in Philly, he told me once. Came home to find my wife in bed with my supervisor. Threw her out. Department told me resign or get fired. I left. He said it all calm, like he'd told the story 100 times. But that explained a lot. I asked the boys not to mention my new job during their prison visits. They agreed. I knew it would eat at Lydia. And yeah, I took a little pleasure in that. Isabella and I grew closer. The kids loved each other. Eventually, we went to Nobles Grove as a group. Mostly we stayed local. Our living situations weren't ideal for romance. I lived with my folks. She lived with Arya in a studio apartment. But then she started house hunting. She told me she was looking for a 4-bedroom. Nate, I think the boys should each have their own room, she said. I nodded. Yeah, split floor plan would be even better. Keep him far from the master bedroom. She smiled, that kind of smile that makes you feel like she sees something in you that you missed. 2 days after my divorce with Lydia was finalized, Isabella and I had dinner at Red Lobster. The kids didn't get the significance, but Isabella did. That night, while the kids were watching a movie, she kissed me in the kitchen. Arya caught us. About time, she said, grinning. We laughed and went back to being good parents for the rest of the night. But yeah, the gears had shifted. After that, our lunch breaks started getting longer and more private. Eventually, we started calling them what they were, our time. One day, Isabella asked if I'd take her to see Lydia. I stared at her. Why? Closure. That word again. I understood the idea, just not the need. Still, I agreed. She insisted I stay in the car. We drove to the prison on a warm fall afternoon. I parked near the fence and watched as Lydia walked into the outdoor visit area. They sat and chatted like old friends for a few minutes. Then, Lydia's smile dropped, and she leaned in, clearly upset. Seconds later, she lunged. Guards dragged her away. Isabella walked back to the car, still smiling. What the hell happened? Oh, your ex-wife's just a little sensitive, she said, buckling in. What did you say to her? I introduced myself. Told her I came from Baltimore looking for revenge. Against me? She assumed that. But you didn't mean it that way. No, she said, eyes sparkling. I meant I was taking over Dominic's business. That was my revenge. I suppose you can still get even with the dead. What set her off? She asked how I planned to hurt you. I told her I was going to work you to death. We both laughed. A couple months later, Isabella and I got married. Backyard ceremony. Simple. Honest. She sent Lydia a wedding invite with one line. Everything's going as planned. Expect him to be exhausted in 40 or 50 years.